Welcome to Specifically About Quality, the podcast by Qualitywise, where we explore the principles, practices, and challenges of modern quality management. We will discuss key concepts, share real-world examples, and bring clarity to the complexities of quality management. In each episode, we provide insights for quality managers and professionals, helping you lead with confidence, ensure compliance, and drive continuous improvement. This podcast is here to support your work and your impact. Clear, focused, practical. Let's get into today's episode. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Qualitywise podcast. I'm Agata Lewkowska, quality management system expert with years of experience in automotive industry. Today, again with me is Christopher Scott.
And I'm Christopher Scott, an expert in quality assurance and operational excellence in the automotive industry as well. At the beginning, let me take this opportunity to thank you for your interest and engagement in listening to Specifically About Quality by Qualitywise. And therefore, we also ask you to follow this podcast and leave your comments, as it's a real sign for us at Qualitywise that recordings are needed. Thank you again.
Today's episode tackles a hot topic, I must say: why FMEA still fails in many organizations and how you can finally make it work. We see it in our practice that some organizations have FMEAs done once for compliance, documents created to satisfy auditors, but not used to improve processes to prevent defects. Today, we'll unpack why that happens and share practical ways to fix it. Isn't it, Chris?
Yes, and if you'd like to go deeper, we've prepared a free episode summary with practical steps, Fixing FMEA Practical Guide, available at qualitywise.pl. So why does FMEA fail, Agata, from your perspective?
So let's start with why FMEA often doesn't deliver real value. I think this is the clue, the real value and the idea of this FMEA method. I will give you the first common reason. It is treated as one-time task. And this is connected with the fact that companies build the FMEA during project management, new launches, based on APQP, Advanced Product Quality Planning, or other methods like for German market VDA MLA, Maturity Level Assurance, and then forget about it. It becomes a dead document. So let me emphasize here that APQP phases are strictly, or even VDA MLA as I mentioned, are strictly saying that at the very beginning, when we start product design, if this is our responsibility, we need to, in this phase, start working with the FMEA. Firstly, with the FMEA for product. When we will have the design from our customer, we're maybe in a lucky situation that we have less work because someone did this analysis outside our organization. However, if we would like to produce, regardless who is the design owner of the product, we need to still design the process. And here, in this next phase, in APQP, phase 3, we are saying about PFMEA, or in VDA MLA, in phase 4, again, we need to start working on PFMEA, yes? Then we have a validation phase. Actually, we're still in pre-series. And this moment, the time for validation, is actually to verify what was agreed in everything what was done before going to serial production. And let's be honest here, I'm not talking only about FMEA in this moment. FMEA will gather all these lessons which we will gain through doing validation. So this is the first step why we should start working and updating FMEA even before going to serial production. And in the serial production, the life is going on. We are learning more. There are different sources of variations. And again, this document must be live, yes, and treated not as a one-time task. Do you agree, Chris?
Yeah, I agree, Agata. Exactly. And another reason, it's built by quality or engineering alone. So what this means is without any real input from production or maintenance, for example, as individual people to feed into the document and activity. So as an example, I worked with a supplier where FMEA was done in a conference room, so a bit of armchair analysis, no operators present to feed into this document to support the sort of growth of it and lessons learned. So it's no surprise they missed the actual root cause of many issues. So in IATF 16949, as we mainly talk about in our podcast series and Qualitywise teaching, IATF 16949 requires a multidisciplinary team. And what this means is cross-departmental, cross-functional. These can be engineers, maintenance engineers and technicians, designers, quality people. It needs to be a mix within the organization. It should not be, as I said earlier, limited to only a quality function or an engineering function alone, like process engineering. It needs to have input from several people within the organization to have real value for root cause analysis and understand the risks. I think maybe from your perspective, I could say something else to add.
Yes, let's say that we shouldn't focus on form over function. And in the FMEA, according to AIAG, we had RPN formulas, yes, risk priority number, which reflects severity, occurrence, and detection. And in many cases, even when I was a team participant for such analysis, honestly, we had this temptation to manipulate the result because we didn't want to score too high with RPNs. The industry standard is over 100 points you need to implement in that approach, FMEA, AIAG, corrective actions. So we wanted to do this, not to work too much later with corrective actions, yes? But this is not this way, because if we are doing so, we are forgetting that FMEA should drive preventive actions. This is the preventive nature that we are foreseeing before some risks they occur, yes? And we've both seen FMEAs with recommended actions that are never implemented, Chris, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's another classic pitfall in general. And sometimes suppliers make up the target and they don't try to look at best practice or benchmarking. That's what I've seen from my experience. So I think another thing is something called copy-paste syndrome. We copy, we paste, we take from one project to another, or we take something that's from the internet and we don't really do the analysis. So what I mean is one FMEA is reused across models, plants without any sort of review, any sort of reflection activity. And risks are not really assessed for their specific process or product. So it is misaligned, and we see that in audits. In Qualitywise, we see that working with our customers. We see it all the time, especially with OEMs. So, of course, it is recommended to create a generic failure mode effects analysis as much as possible, because you don't want to have 10 different ones. Ideally, you want to have something standardized. But it is a must to always be adjusted for a new product or a new process. That is the key message that I'd like to give on that one.
Mm-hmm. Also, let me tell another mistake, because FMEA should really cooperate with control plan. And this is, again, low-hanging fruit during the audits, according to IATF 16949, because the requirements in IATF are very strict in this topic. We need to follow here the point simply 8511 for control plan. And there is written straight, yes, that these documents and even more documents shall cooperate together. And when I'm training in FMEA, I see when I'm asking the question, okay, so what will go to the control plan later? And then we have a brainstorming, or actually we are applying our knowledge if we are more advanced. But generally, now let me just tell you straight. In FMEA, we have current prevention and detection controls, and especially this defined solutions, what we have. To later score the risk based on this, what we have already implemented or designed, we just need to take to our control plan. And this is the alignment, yes. There we can expect to have error proofings, yes, fast piece control or setup verification, and so on and so on. But generally, these examples must later go to your control plan, yes. And this is really a weak point. I understand that both of these documents, FMEA and control plan, are really big documents. Many people are responsible and involved in creation, maintaining these documents, and there is always a risk and possibility that something will be simply overmissed. Not purposely, but it can happen, yes? That's why maybe this is also the control plan itself is one of the main nonconformities claimed during IATF third-party audits. But about control plan, I believe, Chris, we need to record another episode because this is really very important document. Let's agree that this will be our next episode.
Sounds good. And I would go further based on what you said for the final reason. So there's no linkage to problem solving. And you'll hear us in webinars as well as the podcast talk about problem solving, robust problem solving a lot. And an FMEA should evolve based on lessons learned. And you hear that topic quite a lot in APQP. Lessons learned from internal problems, in customer complaints. But many companies forget to update their control plan after an 8D or customer claim. And as an OEM, in my experience, I've seen this many times where I get a submission from a supplier, the supplier does the 8D, and right at the bottom in terms of D7, and we talk about horizontal deployment, there's nothing. There's no review. There's no feedback, nothing, not even SOPs or FMEAs or control plans. And these documents need to be reviewed.
Yes. Before we will go further, let me just emphasize something, because currently we have actually a few editions of FMEA which are still current. This is FMEA according to AIAG. We have also joint approach of FMEA, AIAG and VDA QMC organization, and there's also a VDA QMC approach for this, yes. We're talking generally. If there will be some indication to specific one, then we'll say. And I was maybe too fast with giving you the answer about RPNs, because generally RPNs are, we know, in AIAG approach. But let's remember, for a new approach, AIAG VDA, we have action priority, which luckily is designed in that manner that there is less possibility to manipulate how we will evaluate later the final risk. And this is the really strong point how I see this edition of FMEA. Okay, let's keep going. Maybe let's discuss how to fix this situation with FMEA. What we can do to make it a true preventive tool. Chris?
Yeah, I would say as a first principle is to build the FMEA as a living document. You said this already, but I want to reiterate that statement. It needs to be a living document, not something which is done once because of a PPAP submission to a customer. So there's an example from Qualitywise. One client of mine specifically that I was working with linked to FMEA reviews to each quarterly management review. And this meant that each major customer complaint, so it was linked to the management review, it was linked to some critical or severe concerns with them, non-conformances. And what that does is it forced updates and brought real ownership. So I thought that was a really good and powerful way to have that regular review, and it's not done as one-time submissions, which is a good thing, I think.
Yes. Another advice, what I would say, is connected already to this, what you've said, but this is important. We need to repeat this. This must be cross-functional involvement, yes. Team is a key, actually. And who we have in the team, this will have the direct influence on the depth of our analysis, yes. Everyone has different experiences, different knowledge, and the more we are from different departments, the better, okay? And example, in one project I facilitated, we brought in production supervisors, maintenance even, and logistics, but let me stop on maintenance. Maintenance team is really important, especially in new PFMEA approach. New, I mean FMEA, AIAG, VDA. Yes. Let me remind you that we there in PFMEA have process work elements, which are working on 4M types, yes, of the different aspects of the failures. And one of them is machine. I always miss during the workshops or even trainings people from maintenance department who are actually knowing a lot about these working stations in the specific process stages, because they can really support strongly this analysis. Let's remember about them and always invite them, especially if we know that we are doing the new approach. Okay? So please remember about this, that the more people we are, we have then more knowledge, more experiences, and our analysis will be more solid.
Great. So third, I would say that shift focus from scoring to actions, as you mentioned again before, to emphasize what you said earlier. It's not about getting the risk prioritization number below a number like 100, as you mentioned, is best practice. It's about driving real improvements like Poka-yoke, so error proofing, mistake proofing, and the stronger version of Poka-yoke. It's about detection systems and process design. And redesign, this is to try and stop the old processes from allowing defects to be shipped. But of course, we want to do error proofing first, mistake proofing second.
Also, I would add a link FMEA to our lessons learned databases. Yes, in this lessons learned databases, we can have lessons. I didn't want to use word issues from different sources, even from complaint. Yeah, so when we are doing complaint in specific approach like 8D, 8 disciplines, then we will also apply in our FMEA. Actually, with complaints, this is a quite specific topic because generally it is recommended, actually this is required even by ISO 9001 in 10.2.1 to apply risk-based thinking, yes, and see if there are no risks for similar products and processes. But let's remember that this can really, the lessons learned databases can really strengthen our analysis, yes, and make it, again, live document because we are still learning. The processes are running still in our organization. And every day something new can happen. New lesson can be obtained, yes. Later, the only thing is that we could take it to our analysis. And here, let me emphasize the role of moderator. This should be the person here who actually should take care of gaining the inputs for our analysis, yes? And that's why such person definitely should remember about this lessons learned databases in our organization and facilitate simply this analysis, yes? But do not think that this person alone will do the analysis for us. We are the support, yes, for the moderator.
Exactly. And I would say, and lastly, train people on why FMEA matters. So not just how to fill the form. So this is things like when teams see that FMEA or failure mode effects analysis as a tool to prevent pain, customer complaints or dissatisfaction, to reduce or prevent scrap or rework, they will engage more deeply in the subject itself.
Let me also mention one thing from the new approach, FMEA, AIGVDA. There is at the very beginning a statement that senior management should be committed to FMEA to enable those analyses. Because being frank, FMEA analyses are time-consuming, resource-consuming, and there should be a green light in our organization to find this time, find these resources to do this analysis. Of course, this is not cheap analysis. However, it's mandatory analysis. If we will start thinking in that mindset that we are working proactively, FMEA is your, I don't want to say the only tool, but the best tool for doing and fulfilling this aim. Okay, so let's summarize maybe this what we already said. If FMEA in your company feels like a one-time event exercise, it probably is. To fix it, my advices for you are, you must make it living document, yes? Involve real process owners. Don't rely only on the moderator, okay? Moderator is a kind of a person who holds the space, knows the requirements of the method itself, is trained, experienced, but necessarily this person doesn't have to have the knowledge of the process or even the product. Focus on actions. This what will be an outcome from our analysis is a must. It's not about manipulation, okay? It can come back to us during customer audit. Pay attention to this. Link this analysis to lessons learned. And what's more, this is what Chris said, train for understanding, that people will get this mindset. So again, we can come back to the quality culture, which supports here the preventive aim of our analysis. Chris, would you add something else?
Yes, I'd like to say that if you'd like help with this, so FMEA specifically, we at Qualitywise offer the following services, which is the FMEA workshops, FMEA audits and coaching, so we can coach your team and your companies of how to do this effectively, and full APQP and core tools training. So visit qualitywise.pl to explore how we can support your team.
And don't forget to download today's free guide, Fixing FMEA. This is a practical guide which will help you understand this, what we already said, and even more. You can find it at qualitywise.pl. Thank you for listening to specifically about quality, and we hope to see you next time. Bye.